Hello, everybody. Andrew Blake from the digitalaudiomanual.com with another episode of Cubase Tips for the week of June 13th, 2025. Today, let's talk about some updates that occurred in some of the menus in Cubase. If we go up to Edit and come down to an option that says Select, given quite a sub-menu here with a long list of different options. And as you can see right now, most of these are grayed out. If I exit out of here and I switch to my Range tool, and on one of these audio tracks, I make a little range selection. If I return to the Edit menu, down to Select, this menu has now come alive with a whole lot of different options, and yet there's still some things grayed out. Two things I want to call your attention to on this menu. This menu has kind of an unusual characteristic in that it covers different things, spanning functions regarding MIDI and also functions regarding audio. And other things, just selecting events in general. And depending on what you do, certain parts of this menu are going to light up, and other parts of it are just going to gray out like it has here. This menu holds some main commands that will really increase your workflow in general, but they are not necessarily apparent what they actually do. So allow me to try to clarify some of these things so you can get the most out of what's actually here. Previous versions of Cubase, most of these commands ended halfway down this menu. And all these other options that we have now, about midway down, are pretty much all new additions in Cubase 14. I'm going to hold off on going through all these previous commands because they were common to all the versions of Cubase before. Instead, I want to jump right into these new commands, maybe a little vague, and see if we can clarify what they actually do. First one on the list we're going to look at says Range to Next Event. If I click on this option, that selection I had made before I opened the menu looks like it disappeared. What's really happened is it has selected the little area in between these two events. That's actually considered a place to select something with these commands. If I return to this menu and I take the next option as Range to the previous event, it actually put a little highlight at the very beginning of this event. I'm going to show you some better ways to work with this in a minute, but let's continue on and just see what it does. Turning to the menu, if I say enlarge the range to the next event, it selected this whole event until it got to the next one and stopped. Let me repeat that and take enlarge to the next event. And you can see that it selected the next event, so now it has two events selected. Returning to that menu, if I take the next option that says enlarge the range to the previous event, we really don't know what it did because it's not obvious here. So two things that are happening at this moment, the fact that we have to go up to these menus, come down to select every time, navigate to whatever we want in this list, and then click on it to actually perform it. The minute we actually do that, menu disappears on us. And if we're trying to figure out what this actually does, that's a lot of steps to have to go through and repeat to even see what the result is. The better way when you're learning how to understand these features, I personally have found, is to go ahead and just create a bunch of shortcuts, or rather key commands, for all of these so you can see them in action without having to reopen the menu, and you can just hit the different key commands. It becomes very obvious very quickly exactly what is going on here. As you can see in the menu now, if you look to the right, I have created a whole list of different key commands. To find these menu options, you can remember basically what the wording is. In this case, the first one says Range to Next Event. If I go up to my Edit, down to Key Commands, and I start typing that in, range, without having to go too far, all those options are now listed here. Range to the next event, range to the previous event, not necessarily in order, but they're all here in this long list, and they're pretty much under the category of edit. Once you've identified these, you can begin assigning different key commands to them. I'm just going to demonstrate them for you. You can then decide if it's worth your time, actually go back yourself and assign some key commands and put this in your list of things that you have. Also, in order to help you understand better, I'm actually going to take a picture of this menu select option, and I'll put it up here as I demonstrate things, so this menu will always stay visible. Keep in mind that's what I've done, and that's why you can see this menu as I go through each one of these commands. All right, now that we got our keyboard shortcuts assigned, let's go through some of these commands. I'm going to start by zooming in here. With my range tool selected, and I click somewhere and make a small range selection, we're going to use these commands that say range to next event and range to previous event. If I go range to next event, you can see that this white cursor area moved to the end of this event. If I do that same command again, it moves over to the beginning of the next event. And if I do it again, then it moves to the end of that event. If I do it one more time, now it goes to the beginning of the next event. If I go range to previous event in the other direction, you can see that it's moving the cursor along in the other direction. So if I go range to next event, it's going to move to the right. As you can see, it's moving to the right. If I move range to the previous event, see that it's moving to the left. Let's move it back to the beginning of this larger event. Now if we do the next command that says range enlarged to the next event, then it selects this whole event. And if I do that command again, it actually selects this empty space leading up to the next event. If I do it again, it selects the next event, and if I do it again, it selects the space. I go range to previous event, then it selects the space over here. And if I do it again, it selects the whole event to the left. To get out of this, if I go back to the previous commands of range to previous event, then it just moves that little white cursor again, and I can begin moving to the left or to the right, back and forth like that. Or I can switch to selecting the ranges, or I can switch to moving back and forth. So there's your first 4 commands. All right, if we look at our list, next we have a group of commands that are looking for the hit points. If I temporarily open this up in the sample editor, you can see all these little lines. These are considered hit points. Basically the peaks of each little wave. They're real prominent when it comes to a drum beat of some kind. You won't necessarily see a hit point on a pad. But again, if I choose my range tool, I could either drag a range or I could just click on this piece of audio. And now if I use those commands, first ones that go range to next hit point or range to previous hit point, again, you're going to see this little white cursor move to the left or move to the right. But instead of moving the whole distance of this event to the next event, it's now kind of moving on these peaks in this audio wave. For the most part, it hits them. Once in a while, it'll skip something that you think it should hit. But in general, it catches all these little hit point peaks. Then if we use the option that says enlarge the range, if I go to the left, you can see that it now makes selections on the audio per the hit points. If I go to the right, same thing. If I extend to the point where it's empty, like where I have this piece cut out, and then I hit it one more time, it'll actually cover the whole range of that empty space, trying to get to the next hit point on that next event. Again, if I go to the option for range to hit point, then it just starts moving that white cursor around again. And that brings us on to our last option here, where we're moving through segments. This is tied to a new option that Cubase introduced. If I switch to my range tool and I hold Control and Shift, you can see how it lights up certain areas on this audio part. These are segments. How they're actually determined is really just kind of an arbitrary way that Cubase has decided what is a segment. We'll come back to this particular option in a minute. Using our shortcuts and doing what we've been doing, if I make a little selection and then I choose the option of range to the next audio segment, again, the white cursor begins to move, but now it's using this piece of audio segment to decide where it lands. If I take the option to the previous audio segment, then it begins moving to the left. So far we've been able to choose events and hit points, and now we can choose segments. So it really comes down to a matter of what you're trying to edit, the different ways you want to move through your audio to get to it. If I take the next option that says enlarge the range to the next audio segment, then it begins doing that, and it'll just keep increasing per the segments. Want to get back out of that, go back to the option for moving to the audio segments, either to the left or the right. And then the last option that's at the very top of the list says range encompassing the audio segment. I choose that option, whatever segment I'm either on or touching, and it just chooses that whole audio segment. Going back to what I originally showed you, you choose the range tool and then hold Control and Shift. Then you can move through the different segments so you see them visually. Many times when people are demonstrating this, they leave out some of the details that can be helpful. First of all, the purpose of this is it allows you to take these segments and either change the volume of them, or you could select them, hit delete, and remove them. But where you set this up, if you go up to your edit, come down to preferences, and in the first category as editing, if you come down that list, there's an option that says tool modifiers. When you click on that, you get a list of different tools. One of the tools is your range tool. If you select that, there's now an option in here that you can choose that says the audio segment editing. And right now it shows my shortcut of Control Shift. If I wanted to change that, I could hold some different keys and then come down here and hit this button that says Assign. But right now it's set for Control and Shift, and that's good for me. But if you need further information, that's where you find that. And that covers all these new options. I hope that brought some clarity with how to use them so you can decide which ones are useful to you and begin putting them to work and editing your next songs and productions. So have some fun with those tips, make them part of your workflow, and then I'll see you next time. All right, it's going to wrap it up for today. As always, if you haven't already, click the link in the description of this video to learn how you can get access to the all-new Digital Audio Manual Preferred. It's the clear, step-by-step solution showing you not only the tips, but all the secret and typically never talked about features that'll take you to a higher level of using your software. If you've been searching for an all-in-one solution to take you from start to finish and learning Cubase and Wavelab and other music software, this is exactly what you've been looking for. So click on the link in the description and come and be part of the clear path to a better learning experience. So today we took a look at the new options under Edit, Select. We began by examining the range to next event options. Then we got into the range to the next hit point. Then finally we discussed the new audio segments, got a little deeper into what those segments are, and some of the other options that are available. And we'll continue to explore all these different features and functions and all the creative tools that are available to us. As always, it's great to have you guys here, and I'll see you on the next video.